want to go ahead and mute your camera because this is projecting onto YouTube.
Oh
I
no.
will privatize it, but I thought I'd let you know. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So we're good now.
Mhm.
All right. So what's going on, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Don't Call This a Podcast. Um, I'm Ryan McLaughlin, your host. My co-host Dee and Courtney could not be here today, but that's perfectly fine. We do have a special guest today. I've been pretty excited about this one ever since we set everything up earlier this week. But we have a special guest, as y'all have been noticing over the last couple episodes. We've been focusing more on creative types, or just individual people who are doing significant things out of in an everyday life. And so, what we wanted to do today, a good friend of the website, a good friend of Deandra, Miss Pasocca Simone is here. How are you doing?
I am doing great. Thank you for having me.
Not a problem at all. So, Miss Simone here is the author of a book titled "Sorry for Your Loss," which is a compelling story about her and another friend, Danielle, who went through pretty devastating individual losses at that time, and how they were able to come together as friends and help each other through the grieving process. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit, but we really want to spend this time to get to know a little bit more about Miss Simone, or as we affectionately call her, Sock. So, Sock, if you don't mind telling us, who are you, and where are you from?
Oh, wow. I am a Birmingham native from the West Side, graduate of Winona High School, class of 1999. I am celebrating 20 years this year. Wow.
Oh, we.
I know. I'm a mother, I'm a sister, I'm a friend, occasionally a girlfriend when he's not getting on my nerves. Um, I am a hard worker, recent graduate. As of 3 days ago, I got my third
Congratulations to
degree.
you.
Thank you. So I'm a lot of things. I'm like a little mini blender, so to say.
All right then. So tell us a little bit. So you grew up in Birmingham. What was growing up in Birmingham like for those who may not who may be listening, who are maybe not from the area, or maybe didn't spend a lot of time there?
It was fun when we were growing up. I was in an era where we hung out a lot. We had a lot of things going on in downtown Birmingham. I was in a band in high school, so I did a lot of activities with my fellow band members. But weekends was filled with driving up and down First Avenue North, um, kid clubs. We had a lot of teen clubs, and football season was like the highlights, from August to maybe November. So, it was a different time than what it is now. Don't hang out as much as I used to. And I probably would not let my son hang out as much as I used to in high school.
Well, speaking of which, with your son, so to my knowledge, and I think you've stated before, you became a mother at a relatively young age, but you've taken up the mantle, and you seem to be an excellent mother. Tell us about how being a mom kind of changed things for you, and how you've been able to balance everything from the trajectory of your career, which seems to be taking off, along with your recent, education milestone. Tell us about all of that.
I oh I had my son at 21, so I wasn't as young as other people, but it was young. I was fresh out of college. I had just graduated college. So, and a lot of times people will tell you when you're graduating college, those, first few months, maybe couple of years after graduating college, you're kind of like trying to find yourself. You're trying to see what you want to do, find your way. But as soon as I graduated, I had a baby. So the thing about it is, and I look back on it now, I really was still very childish when I had my son. Like, and my friends and I say it all the time, like, you need to grow up or quit playing so much. But like, for maybe from 21 to maybe 28, 29, I really was not serious about things. Like, and it's kind of bad to say, But where I am now, when I look back, like back then, I felt like I had so much time. Whereas in now, I'm on the other side of like I'm close to 40. So nothing seems like I have time now. It's like, my son is going to the ninth grade this year. And it's like, okay, these 4 years are going to go by fast. So it's like I got to get myself together. So that's what me going back to school was, so I can, advance myself into my career.
Okay, let's talk about that a little bit. Backing up with your son, and then as we kind of talk about, as your career continues to take off, you mentioned about how time you look at time differently, and
Yeah.
how now you kind of see. Was there any significant event in your life that just sort of flipped that switch that made you go, "Oh wow, things are kind of taking off"?
Um, Back in like 2015 when my mom passed, I was kind of pushed into the real world, so to say. My family has been very supportive of me through anything that I wanted to do. And I was spoiled growing up. And so when I had my son, of course, he was the only grandchild. So he was spoiled too.
Hmm.
Um, by the grace of God, my grandparents were still alive. I lost my granddad like in 2010, but like my son had a family. Like if I wanted to go out, if I wanted to go out of town, I still was able to do that. Like my family did not limit me to just being a mom. And it helped in a way, but then it
Mhm.
also kind of hindered too, because I still had that mentality like, I'm still young, I'm still kicking it. And I really did not have a lot of worries, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
So I was a mom, but I tell people all the time, my folks raised my baby for a long time because I was still out kicking it. I was still out having fun. Now I'm not saying that I was an absent parent or anything like that. Like I was there. PTA meetings, any game when he played football, I was there. Like the things that he did, I was there, but I still had my family that I fell back on. So when my mom passed, it was kind of like, okay, maybe you need to get a little serious about things. And I was kind of pushed into being serious, you know, after she died.
So let's talk about that a little bit, if you don't mind. When you lost your mom a few years ago, and I remember kind of seeing, at least through your interactions through social media, how a lot of things changed for you. What was your relationship like with your mother?
We were very close. We got close later in our lives. Like me growing up, we had the typical, mother daughter relationship where as I was growing up, I thought I knew more than her. And, I wanted to be grown, but still living under her roof. We had our battles. We would get into it, wouldn't talk for a little while and that kind of stuff. But like as she got sicker, we got closer because no matter what our relationship was, I had never not had my mother. So that was like an adjustment, and in her own way, she was telling me that she was going to pass away. And she was like, throwing a lot of things at me and like putting a lot of things in my head. And I at that moment I didn't think about it. But now that she's gone and I think back to different stuff that she said and different things that she would do, I was like, she was warning me. She was preparing me because she knew that, she wasn't going to be here much longer.
So, so your mother's loss, or your mother's death, wasn't anything sudden. It was something um, that was happening over time, or something that you all were aware of. So with that, how does that? I mean, change losing a loved one is never easy, but
No.
how does it differ when you can kind of see sort of this inevitability coming? How does that affect you? How does that how does that really affect your day by day?
Yeah, like I said, I never not had a mom. I had always had a mother. So, it got to a point where I was like, okay, I would think like, oh, well, what if she's not here? Like, little things that she would always do. I started think as the sicker she got, I started thinking like, okay, she may not be here, for in a few more months. And I mean, I came to terms with it, but then I also was like, my mama's not going anywhere. She's not about to leave me. So it was kind of like a tug of war. And what's crazy is my mother kept all of our birth certificates and social security cards, like all of our information. She had a file cabinet that she would have locked.
Hmm.
And she would have like all of our important information, like life insurance and all that other kind of stuff. So even when she was, getting sickly and, was, taking a turn for the worse, we didn't even think about like she got our birth certificates. Like, nobody
Hmm.
ever said anything like that until like she passed. And I think I was getting ready to change my son to a different school system and I needed his birth certificate. And that's when it hit me. I was like, wait a minute, she got out, but like her birth certificate is locked up at her house, like that kind of stuff. And it was, it was an adjustment. Like when I got ready to register him, or even now, still like when
Hmm.
I get ready to fill out my emergency contact, I'm so used to putting her name there, and it's been. She passed in 2015, so I still sometimes catch myself about to write her name as the emergency contact. So it was an adjustment. We kind of knew it was coming, but we were in denial about it. So
Right. So you said we now do you have siblings and everything of that nature
mm,
or okay.
yes, I have a
So
younger brother.
okay, got you. So as y'all kind of dealt with this, did you find yourself really having to kind of be his shoulder, seeing as you were the older sister, or was it, sort of a balance? One of you kind of taking on the load back and forth as time went forward?
It was all really just me.
Okay.
So it, and the crazy thing about it is that I did not actually mourn her dying
Mm,
for a long time, simply because I was still being that rock for everyone else. I
mm,
wouldn't let my son see me cry. Everything was like I had a game face on. So I took on a whole lot, and everybody knew, as me being the oldest, you know, everybody came to me. Everybody, knew me and, would come to me with it. And so I just held up for everybody else until it finally hit me. And it was like rock bottom from there on out.
mm. Okay. So let's take this time to kind of transition into the book itself or the content of the book. So you and your friend Danielle both experienced significant losses around the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And you all were there for each other sort of as time went on. How did these tragedies sort of interlink? How did you two come to really depend on one of another through such tragic events?
What's crazy is we didn't realize until we were actually writing the book how much we depended on each other. Um, like we before my mom, because my mom passed in April of 2015, and Danielle's daughter passed in October of 2015. So those months are like, that's really close together.
Hmm.
um we when before my mom passed, before her daughter, everything, like she and I would text all day every day. Like we texting funny stuff, we laughing, we joking, the memes, everything. Like this was our routine every day. So once my mom passed, we did the whole sock I'm sorry, blah blah blah, but we kept laughing. And that was, I guess, looking back on it now, that was one of the ways that I was, pushing my grieving back. um so we laughed like all the time, and it's so crazy because we would laugh at stuff that even till now I know we should not have been laughing at. And like I'm sure when we get to the gates that God is going to be like, you know what, y'all play too much. And so when her daughter passed, it was kind of like, all right, so what's going on here? Is something in the universe? Like we neither one of us really knew where to go. Like, so we would still, text and laugh and all this other kind of stuff. And she would randomly text and be like, "Sock, make me laugh," or "I need to laugh about something. It's one of those days." And so that that is how we were able to laugh through it. And the book actually came about, like, we said it as a joke because I no, I brought it up as a joke actually, and I was like, you know what? If we ever wrote a book about some of the things we talked about while we were grieving, then people would really like think we're crazy. And she was like, we could never write a book about that. And I was like, you know what? You're right. And that was in like then a couple of months later, it just really came back to me again, and I was like, you know what? Maybe we do need to write that book. And we sat down and we prayed about it. We prayed together and we just started writing.
So through this writing process, about how long did this take? When from the time where y'all sat down, y'all prayed about it, y'all came to the decision to do it. How long did this process take? Uh, did you experience different stages of grief during this process? Did doing this book bring you even closer together as friends?
It did. It took us about, I think, all together from doing the outline of the book and then actually like completing it to send it to be edited. Maybe it was like 5 to 6 months.
Oh
Um,
wow, okay.
yeah, it took in the book world that doesn't seem like a lot of time, but we would write, both of us would write, and we kind of would feel off each other emotions. And like sometimes I'll know when she was writing and she hit a stumbling block in what she was saying, or it brought back up some memories because of how like our text conversation would be, and then vice versa with me. In the book, we outlined how we experienced each stage of grief. So, we went through each stage, and it was like, okay, what was I doing during this period? During the anger stage, how was I angry? What made me angry? So that's how we put the book together. But in the midst of that, we told jokes because the book was not put out to be sad. It was more of a um a caution, like to tell people, don't say this when somebody, a loved one, has passed, or this isn't something that they want to hear. It was more one of those type books, not
Mhm.
a how-to book. It was more of a don't make the same mistakes we made.
Mm. Okay, wow, and that's a different approach compared to how most people would approach the situation, how most people would approach that sort of book or that sort of artifact in terms of what you're putting out there. So it took y'all 5 or 6 months to get everything kind of edited and turned around. You got it
Mhm.
published, and so now you all are expecting a Kindle version. Is that correct?
Yes, we're expecting the Kindle version. We actually have sent it to be formatted, and we're getting the cover art formatted as well. Had to do some legal things because we kind of used the Facebook format, so we had to make sure we don't come back and get sued for that. But and what's crazy is that we put the book out, we talked about it, we promoted it, and then it was like we kind of got silent on it. And I know I got silent because it brought back a lot. Like I
Mm,
literally relived everything in the book, from like the moment my mom passed, to when I started grieving, to the moment I attempted suicide, to it was a lot. So I kind of wanted to push it back, but it's crazy. So many people that I've known have lost parents, have lost loved ones and stuff. And so that's why we decided to reformat the book.
So from that stance, because you brought something up that I'd like to dive into a little bit if you don't mind, in terms of dealing with grief, and in terms of how depression can become very significant and how it can lead to things that maybe you otherwise would not have done if you weren't dealing with those emotions or dealing with that mental state.
Mhm.
Um, do you feel like friends like Danielle or other friends of yours, do you really feel like that their influence or their involvement helped you through that time, or what was it that really helped you eventually, um, you know, either get through it completely, or if you're still dealing with it, what's helped you deal with it?
Of course, Danielle helped. A lot of my friends helped. when I finally opened up and let them know what was going on. Um, During the period, I really closed myself off. I sat in the house in the dark for weeks at a time. I wasn't eating, I wasn't talking to anyone. The only person I actually would communicate with was Danielle, and it would just sometimes be through text messages. Um, I sent my son to go stay with my grandmother because I did not want him to see me that way. But I felt like I couldn't breathe. I was being suffocated, and I could not come out of it. I knew that how I was feeling was not right. And that's what led me to attempt suicide. I felt guilty. I felt guilty for still being alive and my mom was gone. And I would think about it and it would just be the daytime was the worst time for me because the daytime I felt like I had to face what was going on. I
Mm.
had to face reality. And so nighttime I was fine. I don't know why it was just like being secluded or being in the house dark. I felt so much better. So during the daytime I would take constantly pills after pills. Like I would take a pill probably like 8 o'clock in the morning when the sun was coming, 6, 7 o'clock when the sun was coming up, and sleep for a few hours. And then, I wake up and the sun is still up. So I, take more pills just to sleep until nighttime. And, I didn't think anything of it at first. I just thought that I was just trying to sleep. I just wanted to feel better. That's the
Mhm.
whole point of it. I just wanted to feel better. And so and I talked about it in the book. It was a point where I had taken so many pills until I literally blacked out. I was
Mm.
like on the floor, I was foaming, I was home alone, and I didn't know it. The only way I realized it is that I felt start feeling like really real hot and I started vomiting really bad. And I came to and like when I looked and thought about the time lapse, I had been on the floor for like hours by myself. And so that scared me. And it scared me so bad to where I wanted to get help. And like literally the next day, I found a therapist to go to.
So of course, without diving too much into the books, we want people to read it. um, without diving too much into it, jumping forward, when you started going to this therapist and you started actually seeking the professional help, what was it where were you when you kind of first realized that if I didn't do this, things would have gotten a little bit more drastic than that?
Um, okay, so my first three therapist appointments, it was two or three. The whole hour, I said nothing. I just cried.
Hmm.
I couldn't talk. I gave him my name, but that was it. Like I literally cried the whole hour I was in there. And so probably about the fourth session, I, started opening up. And, he was asking, like, okay, why do you feel this way? Like, everything was a question. And so answering those questions made me realize that I had gotten to a place that I wasn't familiar with. And one thing about me is that I've always felt like I've had control over myself. I was a control freak. And so when I got to that point where the depression had hit so hard and I did not have control, that's when everything started kind of like tumbling. And one of the reasons why, besides the whole suicide attempt and it scaring me, I felt like I needed to come out of this so I could try and gain some type control over my life. Because at that point, I didn't think about anybody. Like I didn't even think about my son. And it's crazy because, it was a selfish move, but I did not feel worthy. I did not feel worthy of still being here.
Hmm. Okay, so on a lighter note, and I do want to thank you for kind of really kind of bearing all that for us and really talking through that experience. Now I know the title of the book comes from a pet peeve of yours.
Yeah.
um,
Yes.
and so when you all were deciding on a name, was it pretty easy to come up with that? I'm assuming it derives from something that you talk about in the book. But take us through the title. Take us through how you named it.
It was a no-brainer simply because um Danielle and I counted between the time that my mom passed and when her daughter passed, the post of people that offered condolences and said sorry for your loss. We counted them. That's another reason why I know we really play too much. But we counted those times. It was numerous, and I'm like, okay, something is not clicking here. Like I've always like that, like you said, it was a peep. I've always said it's not sorry for your loss. And they would still say it. So we came up with it and we came up as a joke, but it's true. Like it's 100. Like if
Mm,
you think about it, how many times have you seen Lost instead of Lost?
way too many.
Exactly.
Way too many.
So, that's how we went with that. And, a lot of what's in the book, and I'm not going to give it away, a lot of what's in the book, you're going to laugh because it's going to be things that you've thought about. And it's somebody else said it. So it's going to be funny. And that's really what we wanted. Like we didn't want people to read the book and be sad. I mean,
Mm.
it has its moments in there because we do go very explicit into how it was when we were grieving. But we wanted people to laugh through the pain.
So the book is available in Amazon on Amazon, as
Yes.
well as will be available on Kindle soon. But where else can they find the book? Is that the main?
They can also find the book at www.daniellelavon.com. They can also email or text or social media. Want to hit us on social media, and we can get it over to it. If it's not, we're the format should be in within the next few days. Hopefully, that's what we're leaning on. We've gotten all the legal stuff taken care of, so that's what we're looking for.
Okay. And so they can follow you on social media. They can follow you on Twitter at Thick Her Bell.
Yes, Thick Herbell, Thickherbell.
And what about Danielle? Where can they find Danielle?
Danielle is on Twitter. She doesn't frequent there a lot. Underscore Danielle Lavon. Both of us are on Facebook. Facebook, she is Danielle Lavon, and I am Pasocca Simone, PASOCCA SIMONE, and Instagram as well. I am PSimone on Instagram.
So we will connect all the social media accounts in this post. So if you found this through the website, thekidswearcrowns.com, you'll be able to find it just on the main part of the post. Miss Simone, Pasocca,
Yes.
thank you so much for your time. I just I know even though it's been 4 years, it doesn't necessarily lessen the blow, and it can still be difficult to talk through it or bring up. So I just thank you for telling us for the last 20 minutes, just kind of your story and where all this came from.
Thank you for having me. It means a lot. I just want everybody else to, know the story and know that, you will come out of it. It will be okay in the end. And if it's not the end, then it's, you got a little bit more to go. Just keep pushing.
Sorry for your loss. Amazon.com, DanielleLavon.com. Kindle version is coming very, very soon. Pasocca, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.